Easter, the Christian holiday, is determined by the moon. Did you know that? I literally just found this out last year because I was always like, why does Easter always change, but Christmas and all these other holidays are always the same? Well, Easter is celebrated on the first Sunday after the first full moon that occurs on or after the spring equinox. If that full moon falls on a Sunday, Easter is delayed a week. So, for people that don't really believe in all this lunar timing and think it's all hocus pocus, and yes, my fellow Christians, or not fellow, I wouldn't really consider myself that at this point, but you guys, you do some witchy stuff too, and that's okay. I think it's really amazing. Welcome to Big Crystal Energy, Season 3, the Veil Season. I'm Ashleigh, and I live at the threshold. Between medicine and magic, between the visible world and what waits just beyond it, between the person I present and the witch I am. I've learned something. The in-between isn't a problem to solve. It's a place of power. This season, we're exploring the veil, where Victorian women spoke for the dead, where fairies guard the crossroads, where glamour becomes armor, where you stop apologizing for being both things at once. The crystals have always known the way through. Let me show you. Hello, my beautiful, magical friends, magical souls. Welcome back to Big Crystal Energy. If you're watching on YouTube or you're seeing any of this on social media, you may notice that I, in fact, have a new background. And it is such a vibe up here in this space. However, I don't know if this is translating well sound-wise because normally I record in a small bedroom in my house, but now I'm in this like open loft space. So we'll see. I may have to do some adjustments to make the sound better. So if the sound of this episode is a little bit, it just sounds like, I don't know. I don't even know what the sound would be. Like I'm in an open space. That is why. But I was just so excited and I was like, I got to use this background. So here we are, my friends, in my beautiful space. I am trying to turn myself into a woman in my own Victorian nightmare, truly. I am this gothic soul at heart, and I'm living in the middle of suburbia. And this is my escape right here in this room with surrounded by my snakes and my gorgeous art and my candles and my crystals and my cards and everything that I love. So welcome to my new space. These nails that I have on are so ridiculous. I got these nails. They're press-ons. I feel so witchy right now. But for all of you guys that have long nails, how do you do it? How do you do it? I am dying. I've had these on for 30 minutes. They're not, they were like $5.99 at the Spirit Halloween store, these Ouija nails. So they feel like they're going to fall off, but I feel like I can't do anything with them on. But I feel very fabulous wearing them. So I'm going to like try to make it through the rest of the day. And then I'll probably have to peel them off and go back to regular scheduled programming. But y'all, spring is in the air. Spring is springing, okay? So this week, I have been purging my space like a mad person. This morning, I went on a major side quest and decided to clean out my entire kitchen pantry, organize all of the cold medications and all the kids' medications and just everything. I hauled out so much stuff. It feels so incredible. I feel like a new person. I'm like, who is this person? Who is this organized lady? I am loving it. I'm loving it. And it's only happening because my husband's still out of town. It'll be like a total whirlwind once he gets home. But okay, without further rambling, Welcome back to Big Crystal Energy. I am Ashleigh. I am so excited to have you here. I think I already said that, but now we're saying it again. Today, I am turning the wheel of the year again. We're going to continue the Wheel of the Year series, and this episode is going to be all about Ostara. And, we started this series in October, on October 31st with Samhain, and that was kind of like the descent. And now, the veil was thinning at that time. And then you had like the turning inward of the winter months. And now the wheel is turning again. We're stepping into Ostara, which is technically considered the spring equinox, which falls on March 20th. So I'm releasing this episode 1 week early intentionally. So this episode comes out the week before Ostara. So you have time to gather herbs, pick out your crystals, create a small altar, maybe plan a ritual or bake something, because this season is all about baking and creating too. And now you'll have time. You can listen to this episode and then you can start preparing. Unless you already know. Maybe you already know all about Ostara, and that's amazing too. I knew some things about it. I did know some things about it, but I did a major deep dive, and now I feel like I really have a grasp on what this, I don't know, do we call it a holiday? Sabbat? Like, what are we calling it? I understand what this is. So the spring equinox is the precise astronomical moment when day and night are equal in length, equaling spring equinox for equal. Light and dark kind of stand in this perfect balance. The sun crosses the celestial equator for one breath of the year. Neither the light nor the dark dominates. It's the official start of spring in the northern hemisphere. Now, where you live, the day and the night may not seem like they're equal, but technically they are. And before we go any further, I do want to acknowledge my listeners in the southern hemisphere. While we welcome spring here, you will be celebrating Mabon in the autumn equinox, and your wheel turns toward harvest while ours turns towards planting. And that is the beauty of cyclical living. We are always somewhere on that spiral. So hello to all of you all that are in the southern hemisphere. Our Ostara is a celebration of rebirth, renewal, fertility, awakening, balance. But like many things in paganism, it is layered, it is nuanced, it is partly ancient and partly modern. Okay. So you may hear some shaky, tappity, tappity. That is my dog, Lila. She always needs to be wherever I am. So naturally, she's right here. So what are we going to talk about today? We are going to talk about the historical roots of Ostara, the goddess. Okay. How am I going to say this? Eostre? I'm probably brutalizing that. Pardon me. I'm sorry. We're also going to talk about Persephone, Dionysus, Aphrodite, and Venus, the lunar timing of Easter, which is more witchy than most people realize, creating an Ostara altar and offerings. We'll do a full crystal breakdown with a deep dive into Green Aventurine. We're going to talk about egg divination and flower divination and a beautiful spring cleaning oracle spread. So light a candle. I've got mine right here. Light a candle, open a window if you can, if it's warm enough. Let some air move through your space. I have some incense burning, and I also have this beautiful kind of room cleansing spray that was designed by my interior designer, Jessica, who is responsible for all this gorgeousness that surrounds me. So I sprayed some of this in my space before we got started. I've got my crystals. I'm ready. I've got my oracle deck. I'm ready to roll. So what is Ostara? Well, Ostara is a modern pagan name for the spring equinox. It is one of the 8 sabbats on the wheel of the year, the balance point between dark and light. But here is where we bring in some historical honesty. The 8 sabbats as a cohesive wheel were largely systematized in the mid-20th century by Gerald Gardner during the formation of modern Wicca. Okay, so he drew from Celtic fire festivals, solstice celebrations, agricultural traditions, and Germanic lore to create a structured ritual year. So there is no recorded evidence of a single ancient pagan culture that celebrated all 8 sabbats in the way that we do now. And interestingly, we don't have a strong archaeological evidence of ancient pagans celebrating the spring equinox as a named holiday like Ostara. That just didn't even exist. So if you are someone that thought that all of these sabbats are these like super ancient rituals, some of them are more ancient than others. I would say Ostara is probably slightly more modern. So the name comes from the Germanic goddess Eostre. The Venerable Bede, an 18th century monk, wrote about a month called Eostermonth, which was roughly April, named after a goddess Eostre. But that is essentially the only written reference we have. That's it. So that's why there's not a lot of information about about that particular goddess, which means Ostara, as we celebrate it, is largely a modern reconstruction inspired by essentially by fragments. And honestly, I don't really find that disappointing. I kind of find it magical because it means that traditions evolve, that myth can breathe, that ritual is alive, and we are not reenacting something that's frozen in time. We are participating in this living magic, which I think ultimately is super cool. So let's talk about kind of the differences between Ostara and Easter, because I think a lot of times they get kind of thought of as sort of, I don't know if it's similar. It's just that some of the symbolism of Ostara is similar to the symbolism of Easter. So I want to talk about something that to me feels very witchy. And I'm sure my fellow Christian people out there may not like how I say that, but that's what I think. Easter, the Christian holiday, is determined by the moon. Did you know that? I literally just found this out last year because I was always like, why does Easter always change, but Christmas and all these other holidays are always the same? Well, Easter is celebrated on the first Sunday after the first full moon that occurs on or after the spring equinox. If that full moon falls on a Sunday, Easter is delayed a week. So, for people that don't really believe in all this lunar timing and think it's all hocus pocus, and yes, my fellow Christians, or not fellow, I wouldn't really consider myself that at this point, but you guys, you do some witchy stuff too, and that's okay. I think it's really amazing. So this season is, the symbolism we see a lot is eggs, rabbits, fertility. These symbols do not appear randomly. They are symbols of potential and reproduction that long predate Christianity. Even if Ostara is a formal Sabbath in modern, like, even if this is like a more formal Sabbath in our modern witchy, whatever it is that we want to say, the energy of spring and like that rebirth, that is ancient, right? So maybe our modern celebration of Ostara is not that ancient, but all the things that Ostara stands for is very ancient. And we see myth everywhere within this celebration, which I think just kind of makes it feel potentially more ancient than what it actually is. So there's a lot of spring deities that we could potentially chat about, but I'm only going to mention a few. I think one of the most famous is Persephone. Persephone, the daughter of Demeter, goddess of crops and harvest. Persephone, she's gathering flowers when the earth splits open and Hades rises, taking her to the underworld. Demeter grieves, and in her grief, the crops fail, winter descends. Eventually, a compromise is made. Persephone has eaten pomegranate seeds and must return below for part of the year. But she must also return above, and when she arises from the underworld, spring begins. Ostara is her ascent. In the moment we rise from our own underworld, it is also the moment that we also arise from our own underworld. Sorry, I am not talking very well or very clearly like usual. So this is a time where we're often kind of rising out of those feelings of burnout, potentially grief, shadow work, long nights. We are rising up out of the darkness that is winter, similar to Persephone. I mean, that was like a very high level, like brief overview of that whole myth. I just don't have time to do a deep dive on that. Maybe in another episode, but not today. I also want to mention Dionysus. Dionysus, the god of grapevines and vegetation. As the earth flowers, his vitality strengthens. He represents creative frenzy, embodied joy, the return of pleasure after survival. Ostara is the first spark. Not yet wild like Beltane, which will be coming up in May, but the first pulse of life returning to the body, right? So then we also have Aphrodite and Venus. When Aphrodite rises from sea foam, flowers bloom where her feet touch land. Venus, her Roman counterpart, governs cultivated gardens, beauty, sensuality. Spring is this relational energy. It's an aesthetic energy. It's creative energy. This is really a great season for glamour magic if you want to get into it. So one of the ways that we can work with this energy of the season is to create an Ostara altar that anchors this energy physically. So I have not yet put together my Ostara altar. I have started working on some things yesterday, but this is what you could potentially, these are things that you could potentially include. So you could have some sort of cloth that you have as like a base, either in green or yellow or floral. I found when I was cleaning my kitchen yesterday, I found this placemat that was really cute, but just not my current style. But it had like these different plants and herbs and things on there. So I decided to keep one of the placemats for my Ostara altar from now and in the future. And then I got rid of the other placemats because they're just nothing like that I would want at this point in my life. But one of them works great. You can put fresh flowers, eggs, seeds, maybe a bowl of soil. Yellow candles are great. You could put an offering such as honey or milk. There's lots of different offerings that you could put on your altar depending on if you have a specific deity that you're working with. If you want to put an offering to the goddess Eostre, you could have eggs, milk, honey, bread, flowers. Specifically for Persephone, pomegranate seeds, dark chocolate, lilies, incense. Demeter would be a deity you could have offerings such as grain, bread, oats, herbs. Dionysus, grape, wine or juice, figs, ivy. Aphrodite would be mostly associated with roses or rosewater, apples, cinnamon, perfume. And then we have Venus. You could have offerings such as olive oil, fruits, coins, flowers. These are just some sort of like relational gesture. You don't have to have all of them. These are just examples. If you have a specific deity or one of the ones that I chatted about that you want to start working with or you have been working with, these are just some simple offerings that are easy to get that you could very simply put on your altar space. Now, I do want to chat about the crystals of Ostara because crystals give physical form to the seasonal energy. I've done a full crystal library episode on most of these stones that I'm going to chat about today. So I'm just going to do like very brief, and then when I get to Green Aventurine, I'm going to dive into that particular stone a little bit more today. So the first one I have is moss agate. Unfortunately, I was digging through all my stones before I started this episode and I cannot find my moss agate, but moss agate is a chalcedony with mineral inclusions resembling moss. The closest thing I have here is some tree agate. This is tree agate. The moss agate governs agriculture, grounded growth, ecosystem balance, patience. It's just very deeply earth connected, which we get just from the way that the stone looks and then also by its name. Ostara is a planting season. It's like literally and metaphorically. Moss agate supports sustainable growth. We also have rose quartz. I have a couple examples here. I have a rose quartz carved heart, which is very beautiful. This is something that would also be very easy to just stick in your pocket. And then I also have this rose quartz skull if you want a little bit more gothic spin on your stones. But I just always love a carved crystal because I think they're just really cute and really fun. Rose quartz could be considered a stone of unconditional love. It's very good for heart chakra healing, compassion, forgiveness, emotional softness. After that isolation that we feel in the winter, rose quartz kind of opens up our heart gently. It makes us feel that love and passion that we experience when we start seeing the first stirrings of spring. I know the other day I was out on a walk around my neighborhood and I was just so lit up and so joyful because there's all these little signs of spring, especially where I live in Northern California. A lot of these little plants and bushes and whatnot are starting to bloom. They're beautiful little flowers. We also have citrine, which is considered kind of like a solar stone. I love this particular piece of citrine that I have because when I turn it in a certain way, I can see a rainbow flash. Maybe you can see that. One of the directions I twist it, you can see a rainbow flash in it. So to me, it's like, oh, the light is coming back. The sun is coming back. I've had my citrine. This stone gives us a lot of confidence and vitality. It makes us connect to our personal power. It gives us momentum. I've been feeling that momentum so strongly this week. As the sun strengthens, citrine supports our outward action. We're feeling fired up. We're feeling excited for what is coming for us in the spring and the summer, what's coming next. We're rising up out of the darkness, the fog, the cold of the winter. It doesn't get that cold where I live, but you get the point. We also have aquamarine, which of course is another one of my favorites. I think I just did an episode on aquamarine, a full episode back in December. This is a stone of emotional clarity. It's really helpful with communication and kind of thawing out our heavy emotions that we maybe have been feeling over the winter months. It helps us release like that stagnation that we may be feeling as we've been cooped up inside all winter. And it also makes us feel courageous for going forward into the spring. And the way that I like to think about this, because I think of aquamarine as kind of like this little piece of ice that's just waiting to be thawed. Like we are this little ice cube and we're just thawing out now. We're just thawing out and getting ready to transform, right? So like ice, it transforms from like this solid matter into water and then eventually evaporates. So it's a very transformative stone. And this is a very transformative time of year for us. And then of course we have clear quartz, which is the master healer. the amplifier, the balancer. Clear quartz is here for clarity. It's here to help us figure out what are our intentions going forward. How can we get in alignment with what it is that we want to create, what we want to do as we feel excited about the coming spring? What can we do to make us feel aligned and equal and balanced? And, it's perfect because this is that time of year where we have the equinox, the the balance of the day and the night. And this is a very balancing stone. But if you have your clear quartz, if you put it with any of the other crystals that I mentioned, it can amplify all of their energy. So I personally pretty much always have a piece of clear quartz on any altar that I have in my house. And this is like the first piece. This little piece here is so special. This is like the first little piece of clear quartz that I ever had. And I thought this piece, you guys, I literally thought this piece was so big. I had no context, right? I was like, oh my gosh, this is such a huge piece of clear quartz. This is like back in my college days. Crystal shops were not, they weren't as prevalent as they are today. So I had nothing else to compare it to. So at the time, it felt like this big chunk of clear quartz. And now I'm like, still cute. But let's do a little bit of a deep dive on Green Aventurine. It is a type of quartz with fuchsite inclusions, creating a shimmer called aventurescence. I have this other piece here, which has a little bit, I think, of the shimmer in it. It's hard to pick up on the camera. It ranks between a 6.5 and a 7 on the Mohs scale, so it's getting more durable. This particular stone is all about growth in new ventures, emotional resistance. It's very big. It's like very good for your heart chakra expansion because the heart chakra is very often associated with the color green. It's a very optimistic stone. It brings confidence into your new beginnings. And unlike moldavite, which catalyzes sudden transformation, moldavite is like very powerful. It has like this very powerful, forceful, like sudden transformative energy to it. Green Aventurine supports steady expansion. This stone whispers, it's safe to grow, it's safe to begin again. You can pair it with moss agate for your grounded roots. You can pair it with the rose quartz for heart-led growth. You can pair it with citrine for that solar courage. You can use it during intention setting. You could place it in the soil. You could carry it, during new beginnings. Maybe you're starting a new job. Maybe you're starting a new adventure. Maybe you're starting a health and fitness journey. It embodies that sustainable energy of spring. And I think some people feel more excited now about starting new things and starting a new journey than maybe they did at the beginning of the year. Mostly because at the beginning of the year, it's still like the cold and it doesn't feel super motivating and it's hard to get up and go to the gym in the morning and it's hard to push ourselves forward because it's already dark by like 4:30 in the afternoon. But now it's light out later. It's not as cold. We're feeling more excited, more motivated. Everything is starting to turn. So I think potentially if this fits for you, maybe this is a time to start working on your goals and start going after the things that you are wanting to go after. It feels to me like potentially slightly more aligned. Like I have literally been on fire this week, way more than I have been since the beginning of January until now. So I don't know. That's just what I personally am experiencing. So from the Llewellyn's book, there's a Llewellyn's Essentials book called Ostara. I should have brought it with me. I use that book to do a lot of the research for this episode. It's just like this little cute book. And it talks about so much stuff with Ostara, and I would really recommend getting it because it's got all kinds of different, it talks about the history of this spot. It talks about like in the ancient roots of it. I mean, loosely ancient, the more modern take on it. It also talks about lots of different types of divination, recipes, rituals, so many things that I could not possibly get into all within this podcast episode. But I liked this quote from the book. It says, "We till our own internal fields and plant our own emotional, mental, spiritual, or even physical crops that we hope to harvest by the end of the light half of the year, so we can use the dark half of the year to rest and to make plans again for the next light half of the year." And I like that because it really shows you that cycle. And now this is the time to plant and sow. And then later in the year we'll be harvesting. And I like that kind of visual for this season. I want to chat with you about 2 different types of divination that I learned through that book that I had never heard of before. And I think they're just kind of fun. One is called oomancy for egg divination. And then the other one is called floromancy for flower divination. I'm going to give like a small explanation on what this egg divination is all about. What you do is you fill a clear bowl with water, you crack an egg into it, and then you let it settle. And then you observe like the rising strands, like are there a lot of strands that rise up to the top of the bowl? Those are for upward growth. Are there dense clusters of the egg, which could indicate stagnation? Is there like a lot of clear space within the bowl, which could represent clarity? And then are there like lots of thread-like forms, which can indicate different paths that you're going on? The egg itself symbolizes the potential, and then you are just reading for like, what are the possibilities? So you could potentially do a much deeper dive on oomancy if you wanted to, but I just thought it was kind of fun because the symbols of eggs are very prominent during this time of year. Now, with the floromancy, you want to use fresh flowers. And there's different ways to like practice with it. You could meditate with a bloom and research its symbolism. You could gently pluck petals and interpret like the patterns, how they fall, what the patterns stand for. Or you could notice which flowers appear first in your life. Like if you're out and about, what flowers do you first notice? And then you can look up what their some different symbols, like what they stand for symbolically, I guess is what I want to say. So daffodils represent rebirth, tulips, declaration. The crocus is for awakening. Rose is for devotion, and violet is for that quiet strength. So, there's lots of different ways that you could do the floromancy, but I mean, once again, it just feels really cool for springtime. And I would say if you want to understand exactly what to do a little bit more, you'll have to do a deep dive because I decided that would be something I would leave up to you. Anyway, so I did want to share because I have this deck. It's called The Seasons of the Witch, Ostara Oracle by Lorraine Anderson and Juliet Diaz. I have all the Oracle decks in this series, one for each of the spots. And this is one of my favorite ones. I just love the symbolism and color of this deck. I mentioned before during our Imbolc episode that that's really my favorite one of these, and that is true, but this is definitely in the top. So through this particular Oracle deck, there's a little booklet that comes with it. And there was a card spread. It was called the Spring Cleaning. Let's see here. Where is it? The Spring Cleaning Spread. So what I would suggest is maybe light a candle, hold some Green Aventurine, take a few deep breaths, and then pull 5 cards. And I'm going to tell you, you could use an Oracle deck. You don't have to use this particular Oracle deck. This is just the one that I have. Or you could even use your tarot cards. It doesn't matter, whatever you have. You don't have to run out and buy anything. You can just use what you have. But here are 5 questions that maybe you could ponder on. What part of your life is stagnant or blocked? Number 2, what action can clear away the dust? Number 3, what can renew or breathe fresh air into this area? Number 4, what action encourages growth and expansion? Number 5, how can you maintain lighter, more vibrant energy moving forward? And then, you can just journal on all these different questions. So I thought it might be fun just to pull a card from this deck. I'm just going to see what it shows us, what it tells us for this episode. I'm not asking it any specific question. This is just kind of a general pull because I thought it would be kind of appropriate. Okay, let's see here. Oh my gosh, you guys, these nails are absolutely ridiculous. I have no idea what I'm doing with them. This is also a very good time of year to do some baking. There are a bunch of recipes out there that are very specific to Ostara. So if there are some recipes. I have been wanting to get a Substack set up. I might, and then I could try to post some recipes on there. Hot cross buns are particularly popular during this time of year, if you know what those are. But okay, let's see. What card is coming forward? It's called Moon Milk. Moon Milk. There is nothing like the medicine that comes from the ritual of yourself. Oh my gosh, I love that. So what I'm seeing with this card is this woman, she's just sitting at her table and she's just enjoying a cup of tea by herself. She's got all of her trinkets surrounding her. She's got her art. She's got her drying flowers. There's a full moon in the background. She loves birds. She's got a little nest right there. So many gorgeous little symbols of the spring around her. And what we're seeing is that she's just celebrating herself. And I think that's so beautiful, especially considering like during these different holidays like Easter and all these like Easter and Christmas and all the different holidays that come up throughout the year. I think it's so nice if we just take a moment, take a breather and celebrate ourselves. Like, what are we proud of? Like, we are now in mid-March. Like, what are we proud of that we accomplished so far this year? Because some time has gone by. We've gone through 2.5 months. Did you head out the gate strong this year? And have you been accomplishing a lot of your goals since the beginning of January? Are you proud of yourself because maybe you took the last couple months to slow down and not do every darn thing that you normally would do, and you just decided to go inward and enjoy the quiet of the winter? What are you proud of yourself about? I am proud of myself because I have been working very hard on this podcast. I've been working very hard on creating space in my home that feels aligned for me. I am very proud of myself for reaching out to people and communicating with people that the prior version of myself from even 2 years ago would have been too scared to communicate with or even ask for help, or so many different things. I mean, the Ashleigh from 2 years ago was even scared to ask for help for anything. And I've learned now that not asking for help is completely preposterous, and that actually asking for help is wonderful because it helps you, but then the person that is helping you, maybe they need a job, or maybe they need whatever it is that you're offering them in return for the help that they're giving you. That's one way to look at it. So as we stand at this balance point, light and dark equal, winter is loosening, spring stretching into the soil, Ostara reminds us that rebirth arrives softly. Till your internal soil, plant wisely, tend gently. Build your altar, place your crystals, offer honey, crack an egg, pull your cards, open your window. Ask yourself, what am I ready to grow? Happy Ostara! Bye. Thank you so much for spending this time at the threshold with me. If you want to go deeper, follow me on Instagram at mystical.mama.ash, where I share daily crystal magic and behind the scenes of this liminal life. You can also find resources, previous episodes, and ways to work with me at bigcrystalenergy.com. We're also on YouTube at Big Crystal Energy Podcast. And if this episode resonated with you, please rate it and review it and share it with a friend that you think would connect with it. It would mean so much to me and helping build this beautiful community of other magical friends and crystal workers. Thank you so much. Until next time, bye.